My friend went missing and the police refused to investigate until I found the truth. I still remember that morning like it was yesterday, though every detail felt hazy with panic and disbelief. The sunlight was slanting through my apartment window in soft streaks, casting long shadows on the floor, but I barely noticed it. My phone buzzed on the counter. Again, I had been staring at it for the last 15 minutes, hoping for a message from Tori. She had been my friend since college, my anchor through the mess of early adulthood. She was fearless in a way that made my careful, almost obsessive nature feel like a boring joke. At 23, she was independent, spontaneous, and had this energy that made every room brighter. And I was the opposite. 24, cautious, organized to a fault, but loyal to the point of obsession. That loyalty had always been a source of tension between us, but she never complained, at least not openly. But that morning, something was off. Tori hadn't shown up for work. Not that she was a regular 9 to 5 kind of girl. She had been freelancing at a graphic design studio downtown, but she was supposed to be at a client meeting, her calendar blocked for weeks in advance. I tried calling her once, no answer, tried texting, nothing. Even my group chat with our old college friends was silent. No one had heard from her since the previous night. I shrugged down my hoodie, trying to convince myself she was just running late. Maybe she stayed over at her boyfriend's, or had a spontaneous adventure, like she always did. But the knot in my stomach tightened anyway. I found myself pacing her apartment later that morning, having decided I needed to check on her. The door wasn't locked, which wasn't unusual for her. She often left it unlocked, trusting people too easily. But the second I stepped inside, I noticed something strange. The apartment, was pristine. Too pristine. Tori had never been neat like this. Her shoes were lined up perfectly by the door. Her laptop was closed, her coffee mug clean and untouched on the counter. Even the little stack of bills she usually let pile up on the kitchen table was gone. And her phone. It was sitting on the counter, screen cracked but still functional. Messages from unknown numbers flickered on the lock screen. Most were generic spam, or so I thought at first. But then I noticed one that made my chest tighten. "You can't trust him. Don't go." I froze. My mind raced. "Don't go where?" I whispered to the empty apartment. My heart thumped in my ears. Tori was cautious in some ways, but she never wrote cryptic messages to herself. She wasn't the type to leave warnings. Panic surged, and I did the only thing I could think of. I called the police. "Hi, I need to report a missing person." I stammered to the dispatcher, trying not to sound like a complete lunatic. "My friend, Tori, she hasn't been answering calls, texts, nothing. It's been since last night. She's 23. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, 23? That's old enough to be out doing whatever. Has she run off before? No. She wouldn't just leave like that. Something's wrong. Well, I said, my voice rising a little. Her apartment is untouched. Her phone is here. She wouldn't just disappear. Another pause. "Sir, we get a lot of missing person reports like this. If she's over 18, she can make her own decisions. Give it a few days. She'll likely come back." I felt my stomach drop. "A few days? You're not taking this seriously?" "Sir, please calm down. You can file a report if you want, but right now there's no evidence of a crime." And that was it. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone, seething. No help from the police. No one would take it seriously because she was an adult. But my gut didn't care about age. It screamed that Tori wasn't safe. Something was wrong, and I was the only one who could do anything about it. I left her apartment in a rush, keys in hand, running my mind through every possible scenario. Maybe someone had taken her. A stalker? Someone she'd met online? She was careful with people, but not careful enough. Or maybe... no. I couldn't even think about the worst scenarios without feeling my throat tighten. Her car was still in the parking lot. Engine cold. No sign she had driven anywhere. Her bag was on the couch, untouched, with her laptop, charger, and a sketch pad she never went anywhere without. I rifled through it quickly, hoping for a clue, but it was empty except for a half-finished sketch of a city skyline. A line was scribbled in the margin. "They're closer than I think." A chill ran down my spine. They're closer than she thinks? Who were they? I started making calls, retracing the last time I had seen her. Her coworkers at the studio hadn't seen her. Clients hadn't heard from her, and even her roommate, well, technically, she didn't have a roommate anymore. Just a cat named Juno, hadn't noticed anything. I checked her social media accounts, hoping for a clue. Her last post was a picture from 2 nights ago. Tori smiling at a cafe, captioned, "New beginnings, new adventures." That was it. Nothing else. No stories, no check-ins, nothing that hinted at fear. Except I clicked through her private messages. One of them caught my eye immediately. A string of texts from an unknown number. Most were harmless, asking about projects or sending links. But the last few made me pause, frozen in disbelief. "You can't hide forever. They're watching." I swallowed hard. My pulse quickened. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't some rebellious whim. Tori was in danger, and I had zero support from anyone. The police dismissed it. Friends assumed she was off on some adventure. Only I knew Tori well enough to know this wasn't her style. By the afternoon, desperation had taken over. I sat in my car in front of her apartment, scanning the building like a man possessed. Every passerby made me flinch, wondering if they had seen something I hadn't. My mind went over every conversation, every place we had been, every time she mentioned someone suspicious. but nothing concrete came up. And then, as if the universe knew I couldn't handle uncertainty any longer, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail from her number. My hands shook as I hit play. Tori's voice came through, breathless and frantic. "Robbie, if you're hearing this, I don't know how much time I have. I can't, don't trust anyone. Look for the red notebook. It's hidden under the third floor stairwell. Hurry." The message cut off abruptly. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would burst. Red notebook? Third floor stairwell? It sounded like something out of a thriller, but this was real. Tori was telling me she was in danger and that she had left clues. I knew then, without a shadow of doubt, that the police weren't going to help. I couldn't wait for bureaucracy, for protocols, for them to finally notice the obvious. If I didn't act now, I might lose her forever. I parked my car and ran back up the stairs to her apartment, grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with essentials, flashlight, gloves, notepad, my phone charger, and started heading toward the third floor stairwell. My hands were trembling, but I didn't care. Every step I took was fueled by the same thought. Tori needs me. I can't fail her. And that's when I realized the terrifying truth. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was the beginning of something far bigger, far darker, and I was going to have to navigate it alone. The police had refused to help. Friends were clueless, and time was running out. I had no idea what I was walking into, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let Tori down. Not now, not ever. And as I reached the stairwell, heart pounding, flashlight in hand, I knew this was the point of no return. Whatever had taken her, or whatever she was running from, was waiting, and I was about to face it head on. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. The apartment was dark and quiet, but my mind refused to calm down. Every sound outside felt amplified. The hum of the street lamp, the distant wail of a siren, the clatter of a neighbor locking their door. I kept thinking about Tori's voicemail, red notebook, third floor stairwell, hurry. Those words replayed over and over in my head like a warning I couldn't ignore. By morning, I was practically vibrating with urgency. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with my phone, charger, flashlight, a small notebook, and even a pair of gloves, because I had no idea what I might be touching or where this trail would lead. My plan was simple. Retrace Tori's steps, talk to everyone who had seen her recently, and try to piece together a timeline. If the police weren't going to investigate, I had to. I had no choice. The first stop was her favorite cafe, a cozy little place a few blocks from her apartment. I knew Tori spent hours there, sketching or working on client projects. The barista, a 20-something guy with ink-stained fingers, looked at me cautiously when I walked in. "Hey, I'm Robbie. I'm looking for Tori," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Have you seen her recently?" The guy hesitated, fidgeting behind the counter. I don't know, man. She hasn't been in the last couple days. Maybe she just skipped town for a bit." I felt a flash of irritation. She wouldn't just leave. Did anyone unusual come in? Anyone following her? Asking about her? He shrugged. "Not that I noticed." "Sorry, dude." I left, frustrated. It wasn't much, but every small lead mattered. Next, I went to her workplace, the graphic design studio downtown. Tori had always been meticulous with her deadlines and projects. If she'd gone missing willingly, something would have tipped her off days ago. Her coworkers were odd. Not hostile, but evasive. I asked if they had seen Tori in the last 24 hours. One woman, a tall brunette with sharp features, hesitated. She's probably just taking some time off," she said, brushing past me. "I'm worried about her. This isn't normal," I said, trying to keep my tone firm. She glanced around the room before leaning closer. "Look, we all get busy. Don't read too much into it. She'll come back when she's ready." Her words stung, but it was the way she avoided eye contact that bothered me. Someone was lying. I could feel it. The entire city felt like it was hiding something from me, and I didn't know who or why. Desperate, I turned to the one place I had almost total access to: social media. Tori had always been meticulous about her privacy, but I managed to access her account from my phone. Most of the posts were normal: sketches, inspirational quotes, occasional selfies. But the deeper I dug, the more unsettling it became. A series of posts had been deleted partially, photos cropped out, captions removed, but I recovered a few using cached pages. Tori had been posting about someone she referred to only as he. One caption read, "I thought I was safe, but he knows too much. Can't let him find me." Another post, timestamped only 2 days before she disappeared, said, "Trust no one. They're everywhere. Watch your back." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Whoever Tori was dealing with wasn't just someone annoying. This was calculated, dangerous, and I had just stepped into it head first. I decided to cross-reference the people she had met recently. A few were harmless clients, some college friends, but one name kept popping up. Someone she had met at a networking event about a month ago. He was older, mid-30s, charming on the surface, but the interactions I could trace online suggested obsession, or worse. Tori had joked about him at first, but the last messages hinted at fear. I began noticing a pattern. Tori wasn't missing because she wanted to disappear. She had been following something, or someone, dangerous. Illegal dealings, shady individuals, maybe even a stalker. I had no proof yet, but the pieces fit too neatly to ignore. That's when things started getting weird. I began noticing subtle threats, small, almost imperceptible signs that someone knew I was looking. My apartment door had faint scratches overnight, like someone tried it but didn't force it open. My phone battery was draining unusually fast even after I replaced it. On my way to her apartment to check the stairwell again, a black SUV followed me for half a block before disappearing into traffic. I felt my pulse quicken. Whoever had Tori or whoever was behind this was watching me. They knew I was getting too close. I didn't let it stop me. If anything, it made me more determined. I started hitting every lead relentlessly, retracing her favorite routes, questioning neighbors, revisiting the cafe, checking libraries, even the park she used to sketch in. Everywhere I went, I kept an eye out for surveillance cameras, anything that might have caught a glimpse of her. That's when I struck gold. I found a small corner store on the edge of her usual jogging route. The owner, an elderly man with wiry glasses, was reluctant to speak at first. But after I explained Tori was missing and I feared for her safety, he leaned in and whispered, "She came in a few days ago, looking scared. Paid cash for a bottle of water. Didn't look at me much. Wait, yes, she mentioned meeting someone dangerous. Then she left in a hurry." "Did anyone follow her?" I asked urgently. He shook his head. "I don't know. I didn't see anyone. But there's a camera outside. Maybe it caught her leaving." I nearly knocked over a stack of cans getting to the camera feed. It wasn't much at first. Grainy black and white footage, but then I saw her. Tori, looking tense, glancing over her shoulder repeatedly. And then, another figure. Tall, moving deliberately behind her. Not walking. Following, watching, waiting. My stomach dropped. Whoever it wasn't just a coincidence. They were with her, or taking her, against her will. I watched the frames over and over, heart racing, stomach twisting. This wasn't just fear or paranoia anymore. Tori had been abducted, and the person behind it was organized, careful, and aware of any investigation. And now they knew I was looking too. I stepped back from the screen, feeling my hands shake. My throat was dry, my mind a jumble of fear and adrenaline. Every warning, every strange post, every evasive coworker suddenly made sense. Tori had been walking a dangerous path, and I had unknowingly followed right behind her. The room felt smaller, oppressive, almost suffocating. But despite the fear, I couldn't stop. I couldn't turn back. Tori's eyes, her laugh, the way she would challenge me and make me laugh like a fool. Everything flashed in my mind, and I swore to myself I wouldn't let her down. I printed the stills from the surveillance camera, scribbled notes in my notebook, and started plotting my next move. Whoever had Tori wasn't just dangerous. They were meticulous, patient, and maybe even cruel. And they had underestimated me. I didn't know what I was walking into yet, but one thing was certain. I was following the trail now, no matter where it led, no matter how dark it got. And the closer I got, the more I realized this wasn't just about finding her. It was about uncovering a truth so twisted it could destroy anyone who got in the way. By the time the sun was setting, painting the city in streaks of gold and red, I had a plan. I had leads. I had evidence that Tori was taken against her will. And for the first time, I felt the weight of what was coming. The danger wasn't just for her anymore. It was for both of us. And I was ready. I couldn't sleep that night either. It wasn't exhaustion. It was fear. The kind that sticks to your skin and makes every sound outside your apartment feel like a warning. I stared at the surveillance photos again. Tori's tense figure, the tall shadow following her, and my chest tightened. Whoever had her was careful, calculated, and now, I knew, dangerous. By sunrise, I was already on the move. I had to dig deeper, and this time I couldn't just retrace her steps. I had to dig into the people closest to her. Exes, coworkers, friends, anyone she interacted with online. Every connection was a potential clue, and somewhere in that web, the truth was hidden. I started with her ex-boyfriends. Not that Tori had many, but the ones she did have left marks. Not scars, but memories, grudges, a little bitterness. The first one, a guy named Mark, was evasive. He answered the phone, voice casual, too casual. "Robbie, hey, yeah, Tori, haven't seen her in a while, man. She's probably off doing something fun." I could hear the laughter in his tone, a little too forced. "Mark, I need you to be honest. She's missing. Something's wrong. Did she mention anyone following her? Anyone threatening her?" There was a pause, long enough that my gut tightened. Then, look, I think you're overreacting. She's fine. She's always been fine. Don't worry about her." That was it. Dismissive, but I could feel the lie. I hung up, frustration mixing with a gnawing worry. Why lie? Next, I turned to her coworkers again. The woman who had been evasive before, the tall brunette, hadn't returned my calls. Her silence screamed guilt. I didn't have time to play polite. I went down to the studio unannounced. The receptionist gave me a cautious look. "She's not here. Miss Blake, the brunette, doesn't want to talk." I forced my way into the office, carefully scanning. Empty desk, computers humming, no sign of Tori, but I noticed something odd. Her computer was gone. Normally, she left it at her desk, even on weekends. I pushed past the receptionist's protest and logged into the office server from another workstation. Nothing. Tori's files, client work, everything. Gone, deleted. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a disappearance. Someone had wiped her digital footprint. Someone had been planning this. By mid-afternoon, I moved on to strangers she had met online. Tori had a small but active online presence, a forum for artists, a group chat for freelance designers. I sifted through her messages, searching for anything unusual. Most were mundane, but one thread made my blood run cold. She had been talking to someone using the handle Nightshade, someone who seemed charming at first, offering freelance work, connections, advice, but the tone shifted in the last few messages Tori sent. I can't, they're following me now. I don't know who to trust. I think they're watching me. Robbie, if anything happens, I'm scared. I slammed my laptop shut. She wasn't just missing, she had been hiding something, running from someone, maybe investigating them. My head spun as I realized the truth was darker than I imagined, and then the threat started in earnest. That night, walking back from a coffee shop where I had tried to get leads from locals, I noticed a black sedan tailing me. At first, I thought it was coincidence, but every turn I made, it was still there. The lights of the city felt oppressive, suffocating, and I could feel eyes on me. Heart hammering, I ducked into a side street, sprinted past a row of shuttered shops, and when I finally looked back, the car was gone. Shaking, I realized the danger wasn't just about Tori anymore. It was about me too. Whoever had taken her knew I was close, and they were watching, waiting. The next morning, I found a pattern. Piecing together her interactions, the evasive coworkers, her cryptic online messages, I saw the thread. Tori had stumbled onto something big. Illegal dealings, someone powerful, someone who didn't want her talking. She hadn't just disappeared randomly, she'd been silenced. I cursed myself. All the warning signs, all the little hints she had dropped in passing, her nervous glances when talking about Nightshade, the deleted messages, the unusual precautions she'd taken. I'd ignored them. I should have seen it coming. I should have done more. I felt like I was failing her, and the thought was unbearable. But there was no time for guilt. I needed a lead. And then, in a rundown corner of the city, I found it. A storage unit facility on the outskirts of town. Nothing remarkable, just rows of metal doors, dusty and gray. But one unit stood out. The keypad had been recently used, and as I peeked from behind a stack of crates, I noticed a delivery van parked awkwardly nearby, engine running, but no one visible. I edged closer, staying low, and then I saw something on the security monitors inside the office. A figure tied to a chair, shaking, head down. My heart stopped. Tori. It was her. I stumbled backward, almost tripping, my stomach churning with relief and terror at the same time. She was alive, but she wasn't safe. Not yet. And then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. Unknown number. Simple. Chilling. Stop looking or you'll be next. I swallowed hard, the adrenaline surging. Whoever had her wasn't just powerful, they were ruthless, and they wanted me out of the picture. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing. My mind raced. I had a location, a potential lead, but getting to it would be dangerous. Every instinct screamed at me to wait, to call the police, to do something sensible, but I knew that wouldn't work. The police had already dismissed it. They wouldn't understand the danger, wouldn't appreciate the stakes. I checked the security footage again. Tori's eyes met the camera, tired, scared, but aware. And in that moment, I knew I had to act. I had to reach her. The risk was huge. I didn't know what awaited me inside that storage unit, who would be there, what traps or threats had been set, but I couldn't hesitate. I couldn't let fear paralyze me when Tori's life hung in the balance. I started planning. The best approach, the timing, how to get inside without alerting anyone. Every detail mattered. Every misstep could cost her life, and maybe mine. By the time the night settled over the city, I had a rough plan, a map in my head of how to approach the facility, the routes to avoid, the potential threats. My stomach twisted in knots, but my resolve hardened. Tori had left clues and I had found the lead. The hidden truth was no longer abstract. It was tangible, and it was terrifying. I slumped in my car for a moment, staring at the dimly lit skyline, heart pounding, and whispered to myself, I'm coming for you, Tori. I swear I'm coming. And with that light, I realized I was no longer just searching for my friend. I was stepping into a world of danger, one that would test every ounce of courage, cunning, and loyalty I had. The hidden truth was out there and I was going to confront it, no matter what it took. The night was colder than I expected, and the sky stretched overhead like a black canvas smeared with the streetlight glow. I parked a block away from the storage facility, heart hammering in my chest. Every instinct screamed that this was it, the moment where everything could go wrong, where the wrong move could cost Tori her life or mine. I crouched behind a dumpster, watching the dimly lit metal doors of the facility. Shadows shifted inside as the security cameras swept the area in slow, mechanical arcs. I had memorized their pattern from the office feed earlier. Timing would be everything. I whispered to myself, trying to steady my shaking hands. You've got this, Robbie. Just think. Calm, smart, careful. I waited for the moment. The cameras turned away, sprinted across the asphalt, and slipped behind a side door that I'd spotted earlier. A maintenance entrance that looked like it hadn't been used in weeks. The lock was rusted, and I forced it open quietly, praying no one was on the other side. Inside, the air smelled of oil and damp concrete. I moved carefully, hugging the walls, flashlight off, ears straining for any sign of life. My mind raced, trying to visualize every scenario. Guards? Traps? Cameras I hadn't accounted for? Whoever had Tori was meticulous, but I had to rely on speed, observation, and a little luck. Then I heard it, A faint shuffling sound, a metallic clang somewhere down the hall. My pulse spiked. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. Another movement. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Someone was walking toward the back storage units. I ducked into a darkened corridor and crept closer, peeking around a corner. There she was, Tori, sitting on a wooden chair, her wrist bound, her head down, hair falling over her face. She flinched as a man stepped into light. A tall figure, broad shoulders, sharp features illuminated by the flickering fluorescent bulbs. He held a phone, speaking quietly but angrily into it. I froze, taking in every detail. This was the person behind everything. The one who had terrified Tori, controlled her life for the past weeks, and now, seeing him in person, I realized how dangerous he really was. I needed a plan, fast. I couldn't just rush in, I had to distract him, create an opening. I looked around the unit, old crates, a loose metal pipe, a stack of cardboard boxes. I grabbed the pipe and, taking a deep breath, threw it across the room. It clattered loudly against the wall. The man spun around, curses spilling from his mouth. What the? I didn't wait. I bolted from my hiding spot, sprinting toward Tori, adrenaline fueling every step. She looked up in shock, eyes wide, terror mingled with relief. Robbie, she whispered, her voice trembling. Hold on, I've got you, I said, yanking the ropes binding her hands. They were tight, but not impossible. My fingers worked quickly, fumbling against the knots. She winced but stayed quiet, eyes darting toward the man who was now moving toward us, fury in every step. Run! I hissed. We sprinted down the corridor, the man shouting behind us, chasing, angry and relentless. I glanced around, trying to find an exit. Crates and boxes became obstacles, but I pushed us through, ducking under dangling wires, sliding across slick concrete. Tori stumbled, and I caught her, yanking her back to her feet. We burst through a secondary door into an alley behind the facility. The cool night air hit us like a wave. I didn't look back. We ran, winding through narrow streets, darting past parked cars and trash bins. The sound of pursuit faded as we put distance between us and the facility, but my mind didn't calm. Whoever had taken her could have sent more people. Finally, we ducked into an abandoned building to catch our breath. Tori collapsed onto a dusty crate, shaking. I sat beside her, heart still racing, breathing hard. It's okay, I said softly. You're safe now. I've got you. She looked up, eyes glistening. Robbie, I didn't think anyone would come. I tried to leave clues, but I was so scared. I swallowed hard. I know, and I should have seen it sooner. I should have noticed the signs. Tori shook her head. No. You did everything you could. You're here now. That's what matters. We stayed there for a moment, catching our breath, letting the reality sink in, but the relief was tempered by fear. Whoever had taken her was still out there, and I wasn't sure what they'd do next. I pulled out my phone knowing I needed to act fast. I sent everything, the photos, timestamps, surveillance stills, to a detective friend who owed me a favor. Within minutes, the police arrived, lights flashing, sirens slicing through the night. Finally, evidence in hand, they took over, asking questions, taking statements. For the first time, I felt a flicker of relief. But the truth about Tori's disappearance was darker than anyone imagined. She had stumbled onto a human trafficking operation, using her design work as a cover to communicate with victims. Nightshade, the man online, was part of it, and the facility we had just escaped, one of their safe houses. Tori had been investigating, trying to help, and they had caught her before she could expose them. I felt a mix of anger, fear, and awe. Tori had been brave beyond measure, risking herself to save others, and I had nearly failed her, caught in my own hesitation. The police escorted us back to a safer location, but I couldn't stop replaying the chase. The look on Tori's face when she saw me, the way adrenaline had forced me to act with instinct rather than thought. Later, in the quiet of a safe house provided by the authorities, Tori and I finally talked. No distractions, no interruptions, just honesty. I was so scared, Robbie, she admitted, tears streaming. I didn't know if I'd make it out alive. You're here. You're safe, I said, taking her hand. That's all that matters. We're okay now. She smiled faintly, exhausted but alive. We are. And thank you. I don't think anyone else would have done what you did. I shrugged, trying to keep my voice steady, but the weight of the night pressed down. I couldn't let them hurt you, not after everything. We stayed up talking, sharing memories, fears, plans for what would come next. The trust between us deepened, stronger now than it had ever been. But even in that warmth, a shadow lingered. Because somewhere out there, I knew the antagonist wasn't gone. He had lost this battle, but he hadn't disappeared. Someone powerful, dangerous, and cunning was still watching, still waiting. And even as Tori and I held each other, exhausted and relieved, I couldn't shake the feeling that the nightmare wasn't completely over. The city hummed outside, indifferent, unaware of the danger that had just passed, and maybe the danger that still lurked, waiting for the next move. Yeah, I knew one thing for certain. We had survived, we had beaten the odds, but the world we'd stepped into was far darker than I could have imagined. And as much as I wanted to relax, to let myself breathe, the truth remained. Someone, somewhere, was still watching, and I would be ready. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.